Hello, hello, hello. Hello, everybody. How's it going?
Good morning, good morning,
Yeah.
good afternoon, good
Well,
evening, good
thanks.
night.
Hello.
In such a
Hello,
diversified
everyone.
panel because so I'm in Bahrain, Dakvaris is in the US, Barcelona. Jesse is in Barcelona, right?
I'm in Barcelona right now. Yeah, Spain.
Yeah. And Freddie, where you are from now?
Yeah, I'm in Nha Trang, a city in the middle of Vietnam.
Hmm.
Very beautiful beach.
Now, Vietnam is like a lot of amazing places, right? It has. Yeah. Awesome. And Amik, where are you from?
I'm in the heart of New York City.
Oh, yeah, I feel sad for you. No problem. And then Brent is from London.
Yeah, I'm
So we
located in London. Yeah.
literally
Brent, what
in
up?
we literally are in different time zones and in crazy times, but um, that actually is giving a hint about decentralization and collectively what we can achieve, right? So today's topic is going to be around compute, which is one of my favorite topic as well. I'm not claiming that I know everything about it, but I would learn a lot about this because the rise of AI has made things very clear. Earlier, whenever we were talking about the need of a GPU or anything, we were only talking about 3D rendering and stuff like that. But artificial intelligence in last couple of years has turned the table. Now, I'm not going to give you any spoiler. Let's first have an introduction of each of our panelists, and then we will dive into and listen to them about their project as well as some of the favorite projects. So, who wants to go first? I think Brent it is
Who is first?
Not
you.
me, I'm freezing.
I'm first. All right. Yeah, no worries. All right. So I'm Brent, co-founder of Mapmetrics. We started this little project like 3 years ago, and it's yeah, we kind of like growing now in the deep in space. What we're doing is we're building a decentralized map of the world where people can add real life map data like traffic and like everything what happens on the road, but also adding like layers on top of it for map data like restaurant opening hours, stores, taking pictures. So like literally all the map metadata you can think of. And well, in the age of AI, there's nothing more important than very accurate hyper localized data. So that's what we're doing.
Awesome. Welcome, welcome. And by
Thanks.
the way, Brent has kept as low profile as possible, but Mapmetrics is building maps, building technology, but also is expert in shipping a lot of code. So you keep getting the updates. So we will go to Jesse from Nosana, and their center of compute story began long time back, but let's hear from him.
Exactly. Thanks for having me here, guys. I'm the co-founder of Nosana. If you don't know Nosana, we are a decentralized compute network. Our goal is to make artificial intelligence compute more affordable and accessible for everyone. As I think we all can acknowledge now, the importance that AI is starting to play in like our lives as an industry. And artificial intelligence needs one thing to run, like one physical element that's required, a resource, which is GPUs. It's basically compute power that runs artificial intelligence. And what Nosana is doing, we're making that compute power way more accessible and liquid than it is today, how it's being used by the majority of companies. So instead of having to rely on huge, like city-sized data centers that are being built by these huge companies, we are using consumer hardware to power artificial intelligence. So we're using DePIN technology to make this very convenient and fast. And yeah, that's just a quick breakdown of what we do. Again, thanks for having me here. Excited for the panel.
We'll have a lot of questions for you, but let's go to Freddie.
Yeah. I'm the CEO and founder of the Influx, and now we are building a decentralized GPU system for both federated AI training and especially we already have a 3D rendering, decentralized 3D rendering system based on our Web2 business. We already have the house 3D. That is my Web2 business that we have already have nearly 300K users global. They are designers, architects, interior designers. They use our software to create beautiful design of houses, architectures design, and then after years of growing the house 3D, we have some bottleneck about the scale of the hardware for the GPU from our data center. It is very expensive, and we decided to develop the distributed GPU render from the 2018. From the 2018, we started the decentralized rendering R&D, and we established our Influx project from early last year. Yeah, and currently we already launched the testnet on both Solana and IoTex.
No, I started my first company in 2006 and is still running strong. But I always thought this as a startup. But these days with Web3, when somebody says I started in 2017 or 2018, we are like, oh, they are OG of the game because, things moving so fast. But I'll come to that. Let's hear from Amit.
Yeah, thank you. So I am Amik. I'm the head of product at a company called Autonomous. We are a layer 1 protocol with a novel consensus mechanism, specifically focused on a vision that is around this idea of AI 3.0. To give you a little bit of context, we view AI 1.0 as centralized machine learning, and then AI 2.0 is kind of where we are today, centralized generative AI, and AI 3.0 is decentralized H plus AI collaboration. So H is the human in the loop. So we're focused on that. The full stack, starting from storage, where we have a granular DePIN network that's powering all of our storage. It's basically people contributing their storage space from their computers to create the data storage network that we have. It's the only truly permanent, immutable storage network in the world. And so we have that underpinning everything else that's running on top of it, which is operators, EVM nodes, custom domains, everything around data and the things that agents or AI would need to do deliver the outcomes, I should say, that people need today. And so we also have compute, where we are looking at TE compute. So we have the maintenance of trust throughout the entire loop, all the way from the data storage level all the way to the computation level. And so we have TG coming up. Our mainnet phase 2 is going to happen this spring. A lot of big things. So things are very busy in a fast moving space. So couldn't be more excited to be here.
Awesome. All the best. The TZ. TZ is always a good thing to hear from partners, right? Something is moving. Right.
It's good.
Last but not the least, my favorite guy, Dakvar, is always a very supportive guy in space, supporting a lot of DePIN. But I will leave it to you to introduce yourself, Dakvar. Go ahead.
Why'd you invite me here? Why'd you invite me here with all these legends up here? Look at all these people building for years. I mean, I've been in some of these projects for many years, and just to see all these people, on the back burner that have been building and now just coming into the light, that's pretty amazing. Like, especially like Brent with Map Matrix.
Show me your map matrix. Show me your map matrix right now, device.
It's in my car. It's in my car.
That's where it's supposed to be.
All seven of them are in my car right now. Yes, sorry. But no, this is amazing. This is a great panel. AI, DePIN, all of this stuff is the future. Where are you going with this, Yog? Take it away. I want to see where we're going with this panel, bro.
Some interesting things is the first one. It's not too complicated, but I always think that um, deep in narrative for compute is like very natural, and no wonder why. If you just look at in deep in the success stories minus mathematics kind of unique solutions has been compute storage, right? And then we are begin to get some success stories like mathematics and like hype mapper kind of things, but primarily success from revenue point of view, it has been compute, right? And of course, like telecom, after helium changed its strategy, then you see a bit of a proof of concept from world mobile. I like you guys, but still early days, you know and there is a lot. So telecom is coming. So my question to the panelist first, now that we know that compute is very natural for deep in, which side you are focusing on, the demand side or the supply side, and which is more challenging?
I can start with that because I've been thinking about it a
Please.
lot. I actually think the best DePIN projects have a balance between supply and demand, and you don't want to focus on one or the other. Of course, there's probably going to be more supply in the beginning. That's been the case with us, where we have a lot of supply and then we're trying to generate demand, which is, I think, the case with most Web3 and DePIN projects. However, I think we're going to start to see that balance out more and more as the years go by, especially if you look at the direction a lot of just general culture is moving towards, with a greater sense of privacy, a greater sense of feeling like things are not as transparent as they should be. It creates that opportunity for the demand side to grow, and more people to get involved in it. And so I would say a balance is the best. We personally, as a company, have started on the supply side, though.
I think
Do
for
you
like,
see that? Yeah, go ahead.
I think that like indeed, like all the DePINs in the beginning, it's all about supply, because then you cannot have a demand without a supply, obviously. And I think indeed where you're saying like balancing it out is the key factor. But what we also have to take in consideration is like the supply can be kind of like targeted to the demand, but the demand is not clear in the beginning yet. You know, like roughly what the demand will be, but you kind of like not pin down, even though like you're still working on the demand as you go. Like it will change over time, clients change. So I think, yeah, indeed, like the supply should be manageable from like depending on the demand. So that's also quite interesting. Like you start off with the supply, and then you're gonna look like, okay, who wants to buy the data, who wants to buy whatever you're selling, and then you kind of like have to tailor the supply towards the demand.
This for mathematics is even tougher because the demand and supplies are not in silos.
Hmm.
You're mapping the world literally, right? So you
I
can't
would
say you're
actually
done, right?
I would
Right?
disagree with it as tougher, to be honest,
Please,
because if you
please.
think about the base layer that we're providing is something that you see back now in a ton of apps, websites, or whatever. They have a base layer as a map, and there are like a limited amount of providers. What we see a lot is that um, when I talk with companies, they really want to leave Google Maps because it's that expensive. And they don't really look into alternatives because it's that stable. But if you can prove that you can actually have a growing plan, and DePIN is definitely one of those sources that you can provide like additional information. Even better, you can provide hyper localized information, which, for example, competitors as a Google, I mean, obviously it's the biggest competitor and it's someone you don't want to pick a fight with. But on the other hand, you can be very, very niche. can be like we can activate like very local, hyper localized data sources on the ground, pay them for the data, and then we can kind of like build a way superior map than Google, because Google has localized data. But when you go to a store, often like the opening hours are wrong, they're not existing anymore because nobody's updating this for them, because the only way the map is updated is by people who want to showcase their company is on Google Maps, for example. So we put the users in charge rather than companies and other like layers that put the metadata in charge. So it's a tough challenge because the world is very big. But on the other hand, if you are able to focus on the smaller bits, I think that's what they're looking for right now. Like a lot of companies are looking for hyper localized data.
Just
Yeah, I
also
agree.
to
If I can comment there, I think both guys like they're right because and it's two different challenges. I think most of the DePIN networks out there, they start with the supply side, right? If you don't have a supply, then there's nothing you can really sell. There's no product market fit you can really target. And as we're deep in network, I think supply side is very close to sort of the core of what a Web3 project is about. As we often get community members to contribute. You can have a nice tokenomics like model and machine to sort of reward people for participating and adding value to that network. So if you have a really solid supply side as a DePIN network, that's very valuable. And there is a lot of superpowers we get from being on blockchain and being decentralized that we can sort of wrap into a product. But the critical and hardest part, and I think where like most projects are finding the challenge the biggest, is getting demand to use that product. First of all, people are just used to whatever they're using, right? Like if they're using Google Maps and their business depends on that, like companies, like their business model might be relying on stable Google Maps, like infrastructure, and it's working for them. They're not going to consider jumping ship to like some kind of innovative new solution that's using blockchain that might risk their business. So it's kind of a long and harder fight to convince businesses to jump over. I think that's the case for most DePIN networks here. For compute, exactly the same. Compute is often extremely crucial for any tech company. They're not going to risk their whole business on like trying to get some bit cheaper GPUs on the network. So at Nostana, what we're trying to do is really aim at like how do we package and phrase our product that we have all these like really unique, powerful properties of being decentralized, like not being reliant on big company, having more private data, having like really geo located compute where you need it, like all these things that are not possible in big clouds. And we're trying to make that appealing and attractive for companies to buy. And I think that it's just two different strategies, but the fact we can get an extremely powerful supply side with tokenomics and with community building and the Web3 spirit, I think it's something we have to make use of, and that's how we can create really powerful products.
Beautiful.
I think that's
I think Jesse
interesting point.
highlighted one very interesting point about a not so critical infrastructure as well in decision making, especially with some of these touchy corporates. Like if we talk about storage, you will have a lot of debate, like where it is stored in, right? But when it comes to compute, because it's considered temporary, when job is done and then I move forward, right? I think a lot of them can actually try out more. Like in our case with the map metrics, why we partnered with Brent and all, is because we don't think our specialized requirement can be handled by Google, by such a centralized company and a massive company. So we felt like, it is easier to disturb Brent in Telegram and nag him to build something which might just sort out our issues. Right?
I think the coolest thing. I think the coolest thing about this with all those DePINs is that it's easier to collaborate. It's easier to grow, and you can share data. You can share users because they have the similar mindset. So, and then together you way stronger if you focus on helping each other out. Like it's for example, York, indeed, like we were talking about maps. We're not charging them for maps. We just want to have them kind of like the infrastructure that they can build on top of. And as soon they start growing as a company, then it's lucrative for both to kind of like get something back. And I think that like in like the data that they are going to provide, it's anonymous anyway. We can learn from that data to make our mapping better. So this kind of like, and this, if those DePINs start working together, and for example having like different AI models with privacy on the main focus, that's super relevant. And we could implement that in our mapping as well, and in our like picture recognition and that kind of stuff. So it's super interesting to see what the DePINs are building and how you can work together to make a way stronger product.
Beautiful. Amit wanted to add something.
Oh, yeah, I was just agreeing with something that Jesse was saying. I think, I think one interesting thing about all of the DePIN projects in general and the industry in general is that, and kind of going back to supply and demand dynamics a little bit, is that typically you would want to see demand first, right? And I think the only reason we get away with creating supply first is because we're in kind of a greenfield space, right? And so what's important to know is we're right at the beginning of all of this. All the people that are using DePIN projects, this is like they're early adopters. And so the sky's kind of the limit. So I think we're just starting to scratch the surface, just because Web3 business models and the way that we approach things is just different. We have different challenges. Now, thinking about corporate, we can get into all the cultural dynamics and like the mentalities around centralized service providers and how that might not be good, and they're in black boxes, et cetera, and how DePIN can help unsilo a lot of that. But I think one thing that maybe is generally not known or like considered is just the impact that DePIN can have on cost for corporate. Because as a DePIN network grows, if it's built inherently the correct way, it's actually going to start to bring costs down for everyone with greater participation, right? And so instead of having, so I've been in this space for 12 years, AI and Web3 for 12 years now, and I spent 4 years of that at Amazon. It's expensive, and their servers are distributed, and it gives you this idea of, you know, it's never going to go down, and it's not actually controlled by a centralized authority, but it is, right? It actually is. I know it is. And so I think that just conscious knowledge of what that impact and the implications of that centralization actually has on society, or could potentially have on society, especially as we have billions and billions of agents like flying around doing all kinds of things within the next like year. This idea of DePIN and the cost ramifications, I think it's something that most people don't consider outside of like our space and our bubble.
Tell us something about that, Dark Virus. What is that logo?
What? This logo? What, Brent? You know this logo? Man, this been
Looks
around
familiar.
for a minute.
Not quite sure where that comes from.
Actually, I got this like many moons ago. Before, actually, it was before DePIN was DePIN.
Yeah.
That's how long Brent's been in the game, trying to conquer Google Maps. Which I hate to say it, I use Google Maps every day. I have to, unfortunately, because they steal everybody's data. So, you know, like traffic jams or
And they
like
don't give you
accidents or
any
whatnot.
reward.
Yeah, I do not have any rewards yet, actually, but I do have a lot of, you know, what is it, M maps or
M
whatnot?
map, yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I don't know. It doesn't have value yet, but it will. They
Yeah.
all will. We're all early, like we always say, but I'm going to be rich. Yes. And I'm going to help take down Google Maps at the same time.
Yeah.
Boom. Mic drop.
Nice.
There is a reason why he visualized the logo colors to be that way, but that's another day. We got to get you and Brent especially to talk about that. So we'll come back to the topic. Mick was highlighting very important thing, and I also was having a talk with one of my very big corporate oriented friend. He was saying that it's difficult to jump to anyone else when on cloud. You have AWS, you have Google Cloud, you have Microsoft. Why would I go to someone else, right? So that got me thinking that would it that be possible that in coming years you will actually see smaller companies contributing to DePIN rather than just individuals, right? Because say for example, there was a cloud company Rackspace, okay, and we were dealing with that, and they are from UK, so we were dealing with them, right? And we liked them more than any of AWS and other solutions back then. But some of our clients would switch to AWS straightforward, right? Because they, as Amik was saying, there is a perception that it would never go down. Oh, they have servers everywhere and they have a data center here in Bahrain. Amazing. Let's just do it, right? But I think DePIN will question that narrative now, right? So I think, and if that happens, you will see compute and storage are two front end to drive that initially, and then eventually it will boil down to other things, right? What do you guys think about it?
Also, they're Amazon, even on cost, if they're beating Rackspace on cost, they're doing it at a loss, right? They don't show you, they don't reveal the actual cost that they incur. They just use market dynamics, and because Amazon wasn't profitable for 20 years for a reason, because they just did that to capture market share. It's not going to last forever, but that's
tell me about that with Google Maps. Like we were so used to use, and if you're browsing these days and you see that all those sample things in most of the websites, is that the developer, they never thought to revisit their API keys, and now Google is charging an arm and leg for Google Maps if you really build a serious app, right? We had an app that did route optimization for one of these food delivery solution, and overnight the cost is, after Google announced cost, it was like overnight boom, it was part of their pie chart of expense. There is a map for Google, so I think that's what we are expecting from DePIN, that it can add value. But if we just look at positively, and even if there are some negative things, please bring in. What do you think 2025, 2026, and in coming years holds for compute to DePIN specifically?
Yeah. In our case, we already have the real demands and the real world running system based on our decentralized GPU, and the cost is 4 or 5 times lower than compared to the traditional rendering GPU. Because you guys may know, for the video and 3D rendering, it takes several minutes to hours, even several days for rendering a video or a movie, and we, by using a large number of distributed GPU working by the workers in a different location contributed by our community, we can cut the cost down and make the time of rendering 10 times faster than using a single GPU on a single local machine. And for 5 years ago, we developed a Web 2 system, and we developed a cloud rendering. We let the designers and the architect use our cloud rendering system, use a web-based application to render their designs, and it takes hours of rendering, and every time it takes our resource running, the GPU running on our DC GPU, and it is a very expensive resource, and we have to cut the cost down, and we decided to develop the distributed workers. We let our home PC can be used to replace the server GPU, and now we already have we are very happy to say that we have nearly 200K users globally, and they are rendering millions designs every year using our system. and that is can be able, we can cut the cost down and make the service price lower because we use the thing we are now called DePIN.
Simplify this, Freddy. For common person, how someone can participate in Inforex? What are the steps?
Excuse me. Can you repeat? I cannot hear you clearly.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, okay.
So for a normal person, like who is new into the space, how he can participate?
For the GPU owner, they just install our workers software, and they can contribute their GPU compute to the resource to the system, and they get reward. And for the designers and the architects, they just use their familiar software because we have the plugin software to plug in into their familiar software like 3ds Max, Maya, Cinema 4D, and any design software they are currently using.
Beautiful. So you have simplified for the supply side, simple software,
both supply
the
side and the demand side. We
Beautiful.
can make it.
And just this is going to be a good question for you as well. How someone can participate?
Well, like to participate in the network, you can connect your compute devices to Nosana. Like in Nosana's case, it's also, I guess, similar as others, where you install our software, we detect the hardware, we do measurements of your hardware, how performant you are. We measure like other things like how stable is the electricity supply and how good is the bandwidth, and we detect that, and we index all of that on the blockchain. So we have a completely on-chain like matching engine of compute hardware to demand. But to participate, you don't have to worry about that. You install the software, you run it, you'll become available on our marketplace. And on the other side, the demand side, if you want to run models, we have various ways you can do that. Like we provide an SDK so you can programmatically interact. You can literally integrate whatever compute you're using into your application and run stuff. But we also have some abstractions where it's very easy to run AI models, as that's the primary use case in our network. Like people run all kinds of open AI models that are like open weights at least. So you can download that code and run the weights. For example, Gemma 3, DeepSeek, like all these models that have been in the news lately, you can with one click deploy it on our network, and we make sure you get matched with the right GPU, and you get your own private endpoint that you can use yourself without people spying on you or using your data for different stuff. So we make it very easy for both sides to run the software.
Cool. That's really cool.
Beautiful.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
I'm very curious about like the protection layer that you're putting in place regarding, because DePIN, I think we can all agree, you're collecting so much data, but where like how do you kind of like guarantee the data source that you're feeding into your AI is not like AI generated but is a real user? How can you know that it's a real user on the other end? Like what are the steps that you guys take to prevent like fake data coming in, or because DePIN is essentially you getting something for participating, so you're getting rewards. So we all know that as soon there are rewards at stake, people will do something to try to spoof the system and getting the rewards for free. So I'm super curious, like what do you guys do to tackle this?
This is a great question, I think. Yeah, really like what we do, and it's really important, right? In our case, we I think can solve it quite smartly because we offer compute. We need to make sure that compute is very, very solid and good. So we actually developed a few techniques, like quite special. We're writing some articles about this, but we are training small neural networks on that GPU, and we can sort of detect the fingerprint of those networks, and we can guarantee that an exact hardware configuration is used for training that network within a certain time frame. So we have like a sort of a scientific way to guarantee a GPU is doing what it should be doing, and we're able to execute that sort of like spoofing benchmark, we call it, at like quite undetectable moments. So we can really get a good estimate. Because there's a lot of GPUs that are joining the network to just mine tokens, but they don't really want to use power. So they try to avoid doing heavy work and stuff like that. So we tried to avoid it in this way, and it's working really well for us. It was a big problem in the start of our network. We were always like fighting, and now I think we found the solution. Like we don't have any people that are abusing the network right now. We have a few thousand GPUs that are available right now on the network. So that's going good. But I think it's for different DePIN networks, it's a different challenge. I can imagine when you're mapping that it's something very complicated, as it's like, you know, input. It can even be human error even that you're dealing with that needs to be like filtered out or something. So I guess it's it's a different challenge for everyone.
I think that is one of the reason why, Brent, you have gone the hardware route then, right?
Correct, 100% correct. I think that like within DePINs, it's super tough to run a secure system if you're running just on a mobile phone, because that's very spoofable. We all have heard about phone farms, and you can just install like an Android app on the Raspberry Pi. So I mean, and AI is the one thing AI is very good at is mimicking people behavior. So it's super difficult to detect the person just from a phone data that you are kind of like collecting. So hardware is a solution for this, especially for us, as the more live data or on-demand data you need, the more difficult it is to protect it from AI or other fake generated data. So that's indeed like why we use the hardware, is because we encrypt the data already in the hardware. So as soon it's shared with the phone or with any other like device, it's encrypted, so people cannot spoof it. And then we decrypt it in the network, and we know for sure, compared with the phone data, that the data that we're collecting is real. There's a real person behind it, and we're not kind of like sending all our tokens to someone with a phone farm sitting there on his own and just running a million phones at the same time. So yeah, but like that's why I'm super curious about those security things, because we're also running different models. We're also looking into the future, what we're building. I think it would be interesting in general to have more meetings about what do we do to prevent our liquidity going into the wrong hands. So that's I'm always wonder like what the projects are up to and how they try to solve this issue.
How about the security of data? Like, are you guys because you know one of the reason why a lot of people wouldn't put their data in centralized AI systems is because of the only protection is trust me, bro, in there, right? And there is nothing real valid. They cannot prove. Like we all have given our data to Google and AWS so much that we become immune to it. But in real, right now, corporates are looking at various ways of being assured about that data safety. So, what are some of the tricks? Because now I'm being very greedy to understand this. What are some of the tricks you guys following?
Was the question about data privacy?
Yeah.
So yeah, I can talk a little bit about that. There's a bunch of different aspects, I think, that DePIN unlocks where there are security concerns, but they're coming from different vectors. So one of them is just the personal data that people want to keep private themselves, and they want to store it somewhere, but they want to make sure that they can trust where they're gonna store it. So that comes down to a couple of different things. At Autonomous, what we do is when let's say you have a painting or like the Mona Lisa, we use as an example. If you wanted to store that on our network, the first thing that happens is once you put it into the network or start to put it into the network, first it's replicated over 1 million times. So that's the first step. So our replication factor is significant compared to other systems. Once it's done that, once it's replicated, it's broken up into millions of pieces. Each one of those replicated chunks is broken up even further into a piece cache. So that piece cache is then distributed across all of the storage globally. So there's only one continent on Earth we don't have a node right now. And so your data is just everywhere. If someone wanted to get that data, good luck. Because you would not, it's just algorithmically speaking, it's even borderline quantum proof, I would say. And I say borderline only because I'm not sure where quantum is right now, because I don't work at Google. But that data is private. unless it's the same concept as not your keys, not your wallet. The only way to decrypt that data is if you have the keys. So the security, from the security standpoint, it's essentially the mental model that everyone has always had. Like, don't give your keys or your driver's license or whatever to someone else that you don't want, whoever you don't want to have access, whoever you don't want to give access to, don't give it to them. And so that's the first thing. So the data is protected. We protect data at rest. In flight, it's protected through HTTPS or whatever, like a vehicle you're using. But then at the compute layer, we also have TEE to protect that compute. So your data and the computation remains private as well. I think from a DePIN standpoint, the TEE part is what I'm looking forward to in terms of the privacy and just general DePIN coming together, just because GPUs, like gaming GPUs that most people buy, like the 5090 or whatever that just came out, you don't have TE on those. You have to buy H100, and those are expensive for consumers, right? So eventually, I think maybe at-home GPUs will also have secure compute capabilities, which will be really cool. But for now, we do have partners and our own TE computation nodes that we can send data to do the computation privately as well. So we monitor privacy throughout the entire loop. So that's the first thing, so people feel like they're protected from a data perspective, a personal data perspective. Now, going further, it's like the centralization, right? So we're running out of data, actually, for AI. I think the prediction now, this was in Nature, that Nature magazine did a research study on this, or they published a research study by someone, where I think publicly available data is supposed to be gone, or maybe it's private data, within the next like 5 to 6 years. So the models will stop improving, right? So we need to generate data that is maybe inherently private, but then somehow becomes still usable. And so then you have to manage that mechanism of access, right, from the user level. So that's the other thing. But then there's AI in general. And so what we have at Autonomous is something called Auto ID that we're working on. And we have an agent framework along with their SDK and all the other ways to participate in the network and like program and develop. But Auto ID is kind of your passport for an autonomous agent, so that we know that that agent is who it says it is. The origination point is verifiable. All of the actions and interactions it has on the network with anyone, that's stored permanently on chain. We call it a chain of integrity, so you can always go back and audit it. So we've essentially solved from the granular data aspect in terms of privacy and any trust issues that might stem from there. We have stuff that we're working on there. And then we also have the agents that are fully autonomous. We have verifiability there. And then eventually, I think we'll get to a point where we have mechanisms to allow granular sharing of data in a private way. And then I think then you'll have the whole loop kind of solved for.
Awesome. And I think also a lot of recent AI companies started looking at FHE as well, right? Homomorphic encryption, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that is also going to be very important. Awesome. Now let's give some thought to other developments happening in the space, especially in compute. So who do you think, in your opinion, of course, you guys have your own project as well, so Dark Virus will have more neutral opinion as well, Brent. But apart from the OGs, the render and IO.NET is fairly also new. Who do you think is making significant progress? And give us some projects and what to watch out for.
It's like DePIN in general, you're saying, or
in compute DePIN.
in compute DePIN.
So, like, who's making progress in compute DePIN? I think there are so many DePIN projects, compute DePIN projects now out there.
Yeah.
I
Name
like
a
to see that some of them are really focused on some niches, like that are focused on, for example, more the corporate compute, the AI inference, the rendering. I think there's a lot of niches out there that networks accommodate. Because in the end, I think like I would measure success for a DePIN network actually like in how much demand the network gets. I think that's sort of how I would measure the progress networks make,
let me
as
make
like
let me
there's
make
so many ways to measure success, right? But
let me pick
sorry,
three.
what?
Let me pick three. Nosana, Autonomous,
Go ahead.
Inferix. I picked my three.
Thank you.
Yeah, that virus. Go ahead.
What? Why would you pick me? Why would you pick me? I'm neutral on all this stuff, man. We're all. I'm just like it's the same stuff over and over. Everybody up here is like, it's like me and you. We hear this stuff every day. It's like the same stuff to us, but like to everybody else in the world, they're just hearing this stuff. It's like repetitive to me, you, Brent, everybody up here. It's just like blah 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 blah, compute, AI, blah blah blah. We need to get out there to the real world and say, hey look, oh Tesla, he's coming out with a new iRobot. It's going to be 30K. 30K, you can have, you remember Bicentennial Man, 1990, Robin Williams, coming a box to your house? 30K for a Tesla robot that will do your dishes, cook your food, and cut your grass. That's what we should
That's
be
it.
talking about. Woo!
I got to pick few for our farmers, so they don't have to work hard in those fields, man.
Bro, they're going to be out there too. They're going to be out there. They're going to replace, the farmers they're going to be out there like the picture I sent the other day, the drones, the blimps, the
Amazing
the
picture it was.
self-driving tractors, the AI agent, or not AI agents because they'll be actually like physical AIs out there. It's life changing, man. It's really around the corner. We've had these movies for so many years, but it's really just been foreshadowing what's to come. Huh?
You know, I was
Huh?
I was underestimating agriculture data. Like from one field, what we collect is like I was like massive. This requires a lot of
How can you
lot of
And this is
AI
the
underestimate
guy
it,
from
agents
man?
Farm
process.
Scent, by the way, ladies and gentlemen. This is the Farm Scent man right here.
And it was a humbling experience actually because I mean I'm not too much from agriculture background, right? I started studying about it, once I started the company because I saw the gap with farmers and not so in agriculture, right? But then
You
as you
saw the
get in,
problem and you've seen the solution.
so yeah, so I think yeah, this is and then in compute space also, I think um, Mick highlighted one of the important thing is like generating demand, right? The beginning, and I'm also looking at companies that have demand generation as a priority because we see this space has a lot of fluff, right? There is so much of hype around a token, and I don't really look at token uh, as anything to do with the success of the company, right? And like I even don't know if Brent has launched the token or not, right?
No, we
But
didn't. No.
right? So, but we will keep an eye on the devices, what it is collecting, where it is being planted, because that's where the real game begins, right? So, some of the companies that are getting this demand is the ones I'm watching. That did they get? For example, IO.net couple of weeks back declared that they got 2 to 3 million or something like that of revenue generation. So my question was, did it from Web2 companies? Because that's what you want to hear. Like, where are we penetrating? Like, was it from the Web2 companies? Then yeah. we are expanding, because these are going to be part of our ecosystem going forward. And I think we believe in a collaborative space more. Like, that's why I liked when Freddie mentioned that a lot of 3D architects and designers are taking his services, because eventually those will learn about the advantage of DePINs, and then um, and that's where we kind of take Web3 systems into the real world, right? So that,
Yeah.
and I experimented on Koi. That looks also good. A lot of people are participating. Um, GPU, I haven't heard about a lot recently, GPU.net, but um, a few months back I was hearing that they were doing well. So some specific project you guys want to highlight?
I think, I mean, if you're thinking about GPU compute, I think computation is one thing, but right now I think the majority of the DePIN GPU stuff is really based on rendering with like Render or Akash Network. Those two companies are doing the majority of that stuff. I think if you look at the waves, I like to think about just innovation of AI in waves. Wave 1 being something that's very much focused on efficiency, Wave 2 being focused on quality, and Wave 3 is kind of the robotics and all of that, like cool. Fascinating stuff that's in the future, or maybe around the corner potentially. But I think Akash and Render are kind of the two big ones. I like, and I'm slightly biased here, but I like a company called Pinlink, because demand is really important for them. In terms of just having very generating that demand. I think that's a priority for a company like Pinlink. There's a bunch of other ones.
How's the
Yeah,
Ether doing?
which one?
Ether?
I'm not sure. Maybe I heard that wrong. I don't know too much about them, to be honest.
Yeah. Dagvaris, want to?
No, keep going. I'm trying to write this
Keep
stuff
going,
down.
yes.
Keep going. Keep
Amit,
talking.
go on.
Hold on. Let me just pull up my list of alpha.
Alpha.
Yeah.
I call it
Give us
Omega
alpha.
because I don't like call it Alpha. Omega. I call it Omega.
Omega. Let me find my Omega.
Omega. Yeah. Let's go.
Why,
I'm
why
gonna
do
write
you
it down.
do
Let's
so?
go.
Clicks away.
Jesse, you want to bring few names? You are watching them?
You mean like DePIN projects or compute projects that
Yeah.
are interesting?
DePIN Compute.
Yeah,
I mean, besides your own, like, what are you looking
besides
at?
my own, no, like I think like one of the things I really like respect and value in this space, especially in compute networks, but that's projects that are very like open source and decentralized at heart. I think it's not very common, and like it's a lot of projects are not open and open source, so they don't allow like outside contributors. They don't do much on chain except for distributing tokens. But I like the projects that are really grasping blockchain values and decentralization and building on top of that. So that's something I really like. Akash is doing that a lot. But there's not that many, and that's something that we also really value, because I think on the long run, like what we're doing in the Web3 space is we have that decentralization value. We want to be like in like these networks should survive the company that builds it, and there should be different companies, smaller companies that can build on top. I think also interoperability can get really good when you're open source and on chain, and other people can read that data and they can build on top of it, and you can, as long as there's people that are connecting their GPUs to Nosana, people will be able to use that GPU power. There's nothing like political or no centralized entity that can make anything to stop that, right? And the companies that do that, like top of my mind, Akash is really like decentralized, which I appreciate. So that's one thing that I value a lot in the Web3, the compute space. If companies like embrace that and work in that way.
When someone who's donating or contributing the compute space to Nosana, it could be partial as well, right? You calculate based on some proof. Yeah, it could be partial, right?
Partial, yeah. You can, like on Osana, anyone can distribute their compute. You can also leave and join when you want. So it's it's a permissionless network. You don't need Osana's permission to connect your GPU. You just connect it, and then the rest is decentralized. So everything happens on chain, and you get indexed, and people can purchase that power. And when you leave, it's also okay. There's no like, you don't have to be there for 7 days a week, 24/7, giving your GPU. Like if you want to start gaming on your on your 4090, you can get off the network and do that and come back when you're ready. So we really have the liquid compute can come and go. Like I think there's also a lot of compute moving around between different providers as people seek out where's the most profit, and different providers often like different compute markets. They have different specializations. So if it's AI inference or training or rendering, so if there's one network that has a lot of like a lot of demand going on, I think a lot of GPU moves to that network. But GPU providers like to remain liquid. So there are some providers that don't have this, that have to like, you have to commit for long sessions of time to be on the network. I think that's a big minus for if you have a GPU, because it's nice if you can move to where the market is. And I think in the end, in the long run, that the compute market will be quite liquid. Like there will be like people with GPUs will move to different networks, and they will contribute where the most value is. And I think the geography, like we're going to see the compute market very distributed. I think like over the whole world, people will be able to supply GPU power. That's going to be like the default way to run your business. I think run tech is going to be on decentralized networks, as there's going to be small hubs around the world where that GPU sort of concentrates in very small sessions. So when we look at energy prices and connectivity issues, like we can really target and locate GPU power where like it's a very liquid business. I think that's where we're going in the future.
I think I also want to add what JC said. Like, if you keep things open source, then cross pollination will be a lot easier. So instead of these compute power moving where the demand is, basically, there will be accumulation from different providers. That's a lot easier as well, right? Let's say X project autonomous suddenly thinks that we require more resources. So instead of generating that demand, probably, pounds on Nosana's, computing powers and take. Probably, this is what I'm guessing that it's going to be natural, because we require so much of computing power in coming years that I don't think demand will be an issue. It's fairly new. We are in the proof of concept stage. Not many have jumped into to use, and corporate, by the way, because we are working a lot with corporate, we know that they haven't really jumped in yet. Whatever innovation you see in the AI level are in the cream layer of corporates. The day-to-day companies haven't implemented much of an AI yet, right? So in coming years, you will see that it's going to be almost like a household thing, right? So it will require a lot of computation. So naturally, the demand will be generated, and hopefully by then, our tools need to talk to each other like our agents, and um, and truly, what we really like, Jack Paris and I have something in common, is that it's a collaborative space. There is absolutely competition can take a backstage. We are building things right now, right? So yeah. So before we close it, oh my God, 1 hour already! You guys are amazing. So, any parting thoughts before we see you again?
Stay strong. The markets will come back.
What? I'll say something. I'll say something. Well, geez, these guys, they have no clue. You guys have been around for a minute, obviously. You guys don't get frustrated. You're in the beginning. You're in the very early stages. You've been here for a while. You're gonna get trampled over and frowned upon, but you're building something amazing. Don't let anybody frustrate you. Keep your eye on the prize. You're going to be amazing. I'm super excited. I'll back you. Whatever y'all need, I'm here for you. And you too, yo, whatever.
Thanks, mate. That means a lot. That means a lot. It's obviously it's always a long journey, and you're totally right. Like the amount of effort that goes into it, and the hard work behind the scenes, and obviously the mistake you made, the stuff that you have to kind of like fix afterwards, and it's a roller coaster, but it's a super awesome one because obviously you see also your product grow, and because of the community, because of all the feedback you get, you're improving and improving, and it's crazy, but it's really cool. So yeah, well, that means a lot. Thanks.
Yes, community is everything, my bro.
It is.
Community.
Someone told me just try to get 800 good people backing your project. You're done. I don't know what
No.
is specific about
I'd say
800.
less. I'd say
It's your local
I'd say
butcher.
actually 50 dedicated, true OG people. They'll take you to the moon. I'm serious.
That's true.
50.
I like these KPIs. Now I have a number to hit.
Where I was just working the why 800? Why not 805? So there must be something behind it. So I'll let you guys know in case I discover anything on that. Yeah, so anyone else want to add?
Just
I
thanks
think-
everyone for joining, and
Go ahead.
it was a pleasure talking to you all. I really would like to connect as well with you folks to just talk about like what you have in mind. I have a lot of questions as well, like how you planning to grow your projects, how you interacting with your community, what is your messaging. I have like so many more questions actually because what you guys are doing is super amazing. So the only thing what I would like to know is like how do you convince the others that it's not that scary, that it's actually simple, it's super easy to jump into your product rather than everybody like it sounds very technical, but obviously the user interface will be very straightforward. So like that kind of stuff, and yeah, I would love to learn more about that.
Like stuff like this,
Let's
face
connect.
to face. We're talking about your product and whatnot. We're here, face to face. That's what it really comes down to. You can have an AI agent, sell your stuff, or you can come on like Spaces or Discord or whatnot, and like me and Yog, face to face. That's where it really
So
comes
one of the
into.
reasons why we are doing broadcast is like, it's quite comforting to see you guys, that finally you don't have to say prove you are a human. So we are not putting that sign anywhere. So that's important to us. So we want to see these smiling faces, and how often you see the core builders. These guys are so valuable. They're spending almost an hour with us. So thank you
That
guys,
is
and thank you
amazing.
to
Thank you
all
guys.
those, right? Thank you to all those 3,138 viewers. You guys are awesome, and we will keep this. This is going to be recorded anyway, will be posted, but we will also share each of these founders' Twitter handle or X handle and their projects X handle. So follow them, encourage them, ask a lot of questions. We have a lot to learn from them, and then, of course, whenever we get chance as a project, speak to them, partner with them, and use as much as you can. Thank you so much, guys. It was a pleasure,
Thank you so
and
much.
thank you for joining us.
Let's grow.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys.